introduction to programming and logical thinking. And the second part here, the logical thinking is very important. Um, I'll give you an analogy to kind of help you understand why I say that and what actually makes a developer, right? Like we are learning programming, not just to learn programming, right? We are learning programming so that we can develop something and we can be a developer, right? A software developer, engineer, whatever name you want to give it. But we are learning this so that we can become a developer. Now, what really makes a developer? That's the question, right? So think of it this way. This analogy might help a little bit. Suppose you want to become an author, right? Now, in any language, doesn't matter, right? If you want to become an author, you want to write novels, for example, what are the things that you need to know, right? The first aspect is the language part. You should know that language really well, really thoroughly. Let's say you're writing a novel in English or in Hindi. You should know that language. And what that means is you should know the alphabets, the words in that language, right? The basic thing that you learned like in primary school. You should know that. You should also know the grammar of that language, right? Languages have different grammar between different languages. A lot of them are similar, but still there is a difference in grammar between languages. And grammar is what? It's nothing but the rules to make up sentences, right? So you should know that grammar of that language. Excuse me. And then finally, you should know the meaning of those sentences, right? Like words and sentences by itself doesn't mean anything unless you know the meaning behind it, right? So you should know all of that to start with, right? As an author. When you look at a developer, actually there are very similar things. First thing is you should know language, right? And we talked about this in the last session, right? Language, programming language help us write those instructions that we give to the computer that they can execute. And I'll briefly review that in a minute. So you should know some language, right? And almost everything applies just as you would in a regular language, right? So there are things called keywords and expressions. So keywords are just like words in regular language. But in fact, keywords are just a smaller subset. There are only few keywords in any programming language. So you should know those, and we will learn some of those keywords in Python in this session. Then, just like grammar, there is syntax, right? In programming language, we call it syntax instead of calling it grammar. And that syntax, again, is very similar. It is a set of rules on how to make sentences in that language, right? So that is the second thing that you should know. And then finally, just like we have meaning for English language or any other language, right? We have semantics, which is another word for meaning, right? Semantics for whatever we write in that language. So it's kind of how you can kind of compare yourself with an author, right? You have to know certain aspects of a language, both as an author and as a developer. So clear so far? And this is actually what most of the courses that you take on programming languages will focus on. They will focus very much on keyword syntax and semantics, right? But there is another aspect. You cannot just become an author if you know a language, right? Like everyone knows a language, some language or the other. You know Hindi, English, Marathi, right? I know Hindi, English, Marathi. People know a few more, but not everyone is an author. It takes more than that. What is that? For an author, it's called creative thinking, right? They should be able to have an author's mindset. Now, author's mindset is basically looking at the world in a certain way, right? For an author, everything is part of their story, right? When they meet someone, they build characters out of those, right? When they have some incident, they kind of keep that in their mind to build scenes and plots for their novels from that, right? So they build this author's mindset, which is very important for an author beyond language, right? Then when they start writing this, their novel, let's say, they have to start by building characters, building scenes, right? Which are kind of components of the whole novel, right? So they have to make that very, very strong. And then finally, they put all of this together to build a story, right? To build that whole novel. Now, this is all kind of what we call creative thinking. And it is important for an author to have both the language skills and this creative thinking skills, right? One without the other is not very useful. Almost everything holds true for a developer, but this is more from logical thinking perspective, right? So what is logical thinking? Well, just like author's mindset, there is a developer's mindset. Now, what is developer's mindset? Well, when you look at something, right, like let's say simplest thing, right? When you look at your phone, it's not just that, or some app in your phone, it's not just how to use that app, but you should immediately start thinking of how that app might have been put together, right? Like think of from the person who developed it, right? From their perspective. And it's not just about that. It's kind of looking at the world around you in the same way, right? Like when you're looking at a bike or a car or whatever, right? Like there are things that go into building all of that. What is it, right? That kind of mindset is very important for you to develop as a developer. And it comes over time. It's not like I'm saying you should have that to start with. What I'm saying is you will develop that over time. Keep that in mind that there is such a thing that you have to develop. Now, just like kind of in the novel world, in the author's world, we have characters and plots. In the developer's world, we have building blocks. And these are called algorithms, right? These are small methods or functions and algorithms that do small tasks. And then we can put all of them together to build the whole software. Now, in developers world, there is one more thing that is very important. For author, they may work alone, right? A lot of the authors, they just work on their own, create their own stories. But developer, there is one more very important thing, which is collaboration. It is very important that you learn how to work with each other, right? We have this big group here. And in the next sessions, I hope that I can give you a project that few of you can work together and develop that collaboration skills. That is very important because if you look at anything that you use on your phone, on your computer, it has been built by a team, right? A single person cannot build all of that. So that collaboration skill is very important, and hopefully through the projects you will start getting into that kind of mindset and skills. So that's how author versus developer kind of are very, very similar to each other, right? Not just the language, which is what many courses will cover. You also have to cover this logical thinking aspect. And in this session, in this course in general, we will focus some time learning the syntax, the semantics first, and then spend a lot of time on using those syntax and semantics and building this logical thinking over time. Right? So that makes sense to everyone? If you have any questions, keep adding it to the chat, okay? I'll go ahead though, but feel free to add your questions in the chat. Now, keeping that in mind, right, with the developer mindset in mind, what are we going to talk about in this session today? So I'll spend a little bit of time going through last session, maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes at max, to just review the flowcharts and pseudocode that we saw. And then we will spend time on some of this bottom part to start with, right? So syntax and semantics, and we will look at only few of them. In Python language or in any language, there are a few more syntax and semantics that you have to learn, and we will learn that in the next session going forward. Today, we are going to spend time on learning about these expressions, variables, operators, and one complex or compound statement called conditionals, right? If statement. So we'll learn some semantics of this. And the way I want to do this is we will learn about it in pseudocode, because that's the general form that is independent of language, right? Any language we can use. And then we will do the same thing in Scratch. And then we will do the same thing in Python, right? So that kind of, that gets deeper into our head, right? We get familiar with that and also understand that these concepts can be used in any programming language. So now if you learn Python today, and if you want to learn any other language, these basic constructs will all remain the same. There might be some new ones in new languages, but the basic ones will not change, right? So that is very important to learn and understand. So we'll do that. And then finally, we'll spend some time building some things, right? Like I said, the building blocks or the algorithms, we will try to build those in this session as well. So before we go into that, I had shared a link with you. Hopefully you had some time to go through that, which talked about how to install these different tools. So please keep kind of pen and paper ready so you can work out some pseudocode, some flowcharts, and also if possible, have these 3 tools installed, right? Scratch, can someone mute? So these are the 3 tools: Scratch, the Python, and Visual Studio Code. Visual Studio Code is used.
Just a minute. Just a second, guys. Please mute yourself. So, Kiran Totre, Badal. Yeah, it's fine now.
So while I discuss, if you guys can go ahead and install some of these tools, I'll put the link to the video in the chat. If you haven't done already, it will help kind of all of us do this together. I want this to be as hands-on as possible, right? So you practice along with me. It's not just me telling you. So if possible, if you have computer handy, try to install this and be ready, right? So going back. So let's review a few things for people who did not join last week. Let me actually open the first session. So I'll skip some of this. I'll start here. So just reviewing from last session, we saw this, right? We saw what a computer is, right? And what it does, right? So computer basically performs 4 operations. It takes some input, it does processing on top of it based on some program that we write, right? Because computer is a programmable device, which means by default, by itself, it doesn't know anything. It doesn't know what to do. It's really a dumb piece of hardware. It only lights up when we write some program. So whatever input we give is processed based on the program that we write. And that is what we are going to do. It has some storage that allows it to store intermediate results like in memory, like RAM, and also some final results like your videos and so on in physical storage like hard disks, right? Both of them can come under this storage bucket. And then finally, based on whatever program you wrote, it processes and outputs that back to the user. And that could be on the screen or on your phone, right? Or printer or whatever it might be, or audio or video. There are different forms of output there can be. So if you look at any computer, those are the 4 basic things that always happen. And program is the one that defines how that processing would be done. And that is exactly the goal of this whole course. So now, like I said, CPU is really, or computer is really a dumb machine, right? All it does is follows whatever we tell it to do. And we tell it to do some things based on these instructions. So computer has a lot of instructions that it can run. And these are just some of them: add, subtract, multiply, divide. I'm telling this because we understand these, but there are many more that the computer can follow. Now, it is our job to give those instructions to a computer. And that is what a program is, right? Program is a set of instructions that we give to the computer for it to run. So in this case, for example, the program says add number 1 and number 2. That is the whole program. If we give that to the computer, it will run that on the input, and generate the output, right? That's all what computer does. Takes the program, runs it on the input that you provide and generates the output. So, and the way to write this program is by writing this set of instructions. But this set of instructions actually can be written in various forms. In the most basic form, computer only understands binary language. So you can write your instruction something like this, which is almost impossible for you to understand what is going on. So computer designers have built these things called programming languages, and there are different kinds of programming languages that have been built for different purposes. And the highest level of these programming languages, like Python, Java, and HTML and C#, those are the most easiest to understand for the humans, right? So if you see here, it simply says A equals 10, B equals 20, and then do some operation on that. It's very easy to understand. But computer doesn't understand this, right? It understands only binary language. So there is a process called compilation, which will take this program and convert that into a language that the computer can understand. And that is the binary language, right? So compilation is a process of converting your program in higher level language into a binary language that the computer can understand. So we will see how that happens when we look at Python. But the key here to understand is when you write this program, it doesn't run as is. It has to be converted into a language that computer understands. And that is called compilation. Now, after that, we saw some of the things about what kind of basic things of programming are, right? And we saw two things. We saw a flowchart and a pseudocode, right? So, and I'll go back to both of them. I'll go back to what a flowchart is when we look at some of the examples and what pseudocode is when we look at that. But at the highest level, both of that help us build the programming logic on paper, right? Before even we start coding or making any programs in computer. And that will help us build that logical thinking a little bit. So knowing both flowchart and pseudocode is very important for that reason. And there was one very nice question. Yes, last session someone asked, sorry, I forget who it was. But the question was, other than flowcharts and pseudocode, are there other methods to capture this logical thinking? And actually I said, well, let me take a look. I'll get back to you next week. And I think I have answered to that question. There are a few things. I just picked two of them. First one is block diagrams. So block diagrams are nothing but kind of boxes and arrows like you see here that show you how different components of a large software are related to each other. So if you see here, it says there is a client, there is an API gateway, there are some services. Like these are all the components of the whole big software. So block diagrams are used for that purpose. And there is also something called UML, which stands for Unified Modeling Language. And that is used to express the entities and relations in a software. And you don't have to worry if you don't understand all of this yet. I'm just answering the question that there was. And if you have more questions on this, I can create a separate session just talking about these kind of towards the end of our course.
Alok, one question.
Yes.
Do you have dual mon or something? You have two windows here. And
yeah, I'll increase the size for this. I wanted to keep the whiteboard on the side so that I can.
Yeah, your block diagram, I was just thinking people may have problem looking at it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Makes sense. So both block diagrams and UML are used for putting things on paper for the large software system, right? Whereas pseudocode and flowchart, they are used for they are used for kind of smaller components of that system. So if you want to write a function, and I'll talk about what it means later on, which is basically a small subset of your whole software, you can then use flowchart or pseudocode to express what goes in that function. But if you want to do it at a higher level to define all the components in your software, then block diagrams or UML are a good place to do that. So keep that in mind. And depending on interest, I can do a deep dive on these concepts later on. Okay, so a lot of review. Before I get started, do you have any questions you want me to talk about? I think I lost the chat. If not, let's get started. I think I'm really excited for this session today. So now let's start learning about the syntax and the semantics, right? And the first thing, the very basic thing of any programming language is expression. So expression and statements are the basic building blocks of any programming language. Now, what is an expression, right? Expression is anything that has a value. Expression is anything that has a value. Now, what does that mean? Well, is this working? Yeah. So we know for sure number 2 has a value, right? The value of this number is 2. There is a value that associated with this number. When we say 2 plus 3, this also has a value, right? Which is 5. Now, all of these are expressions in a programming language. So expressions can be values and can be a combination of any of these. So when I say a number 2, number 3, or whatever these are called constants because it's a constant number. We know exactly what the value of this is, right? So it can be a combination of constants or variables. And we saw what a variable means in last session a little bit, right? Variable is, and I'll talk about it a little bit also later. Variable is a named location. Let's say when we type a equals 10, a here is a variable that has the value 10, right? So a, think of it like a box that can hold something of value to you. So variable is a named location in memory of computer that can hold a value, right? I'll talk about functions later and operators. Operator is this, right? Plus, minus, multiply, all of these are operators. Operators. So what is expression then? It says expression is a combination of one or more of these things. So it could be just a constant. This is an expression. It could also be just a variable. This is also an expression because variables have value. Or it could be a combination of these. And the way we combine this is using an operator. So it could be something like a plus 2. This is an expression, right? I'll talk about how to call a function, but when we do a function call, we do something like this. And this, if it returns a value, then this is also an expression, and you can combine that with other operators again, right? So you can say f multiplied by 5, right? The function, the value that is returned by this function multiplied by 5. This is also an expression. So all of these are expressions, and these are the most basic fundamental entity in any programming. So expression is very important to understand. Now, based on expression, we can then define a statement, right? Expression are like words in regular language. Build a combination of these expressions can give you statements, but statements have to have certain components that complete the expression in a way. So what is a statement? Statement is essentially kind of an action that you do. So, and it can consist of one or more expressions. The most basic form of statement already we saw is A equals some expression. This is called an assignment statement. This is the most basic form of a statement, right? So if you just write an expression, if you just write 2 times 2, 2 times 2, that is an expression. But then if you assign it to some variable, that makes it a statement. Okay, so that is very important to understand. And statements can be of various forms. Assignment is one of them. I talked about function calls. You can do a function call without actually assigning it to anything, especially when this function is doing something. So that can also be a statement. And there is another statement called return, and let's talk about that a little bit later. But in addition to these simple statements, these are all called simple statement because you can actually write them in one line in the simplest form. And these are the basic statements. But there are these things called compound statements also. And compound statements are, I think from the name it's clear, it's kind of a combination of simple statements. So the most basic compound statement is called a block. Block is nothing but few sentences blocked together. So if I say A equals 10, B equals 20, C equals 10 plus A times B. So this is one statement. This is another statement. This is another statement. If you put all of these together, this makes a block. And this is what we call a compound statement. So what is a block then? Block is just a set of statements put together and that run in an order. So when you run this program, it will run this one first, this one second, and then finally this one, right? So block has a defined order to it always. That's what makes a block. And if you can see here on the slide, we have other kinds of compound statements also. Some of them are like if statement, switch, for, and while. And it's okay if you don't understand these right now. We will go through each one of them in detail in this session and in next sessions also. And Prashant has a very good explanation for this. He says, expressions you might have done already on your computer, right? Sorry, not computer, calculators. And like you run that, even if you see the calculator in your computer, you can type these expressions and get the results. And these are the same expressions that you can use in programming language also. But here you run one expression at a time, right? You cannot run multiple expressions at a time. In programming language, you can define all of these expressions and statements together and then run that whole program in one go, right? So that's kind of the difference between calculator and computer program. And another is there are many other kinds of expressions that you can write that are hard to do or not possible in a calculator. So we will kind of look at those going forward also. So that's the first most basic thing to understand, expressions and statements. Now, we talked about variables a little bit already, right? We said here A, B, and C are variables because they are storing some value, right? In this case, A is storing 10, B is storing 20. Now, when we type this expression, C actually doesn't store this expression as is. It doesn't store 10 plus A into B. What it stores is the value after evaluating this expression. So it will do 10 times A times B, which is 200, and then add 10 to that and store that value in C, right? So C is also a variable. And these variables are stored in computer's memory, right? What we call RAM. That is where all of these variables are stored. So a variable is a named location, and it has to be named because we want to get it back also. It's not just because, let's see here, we stored something in A, but then we want to use that value at some other point. So we should be able to get that value by a name. And that is very important. A variable has to have a name for that reason. So a variable is a named location in the computer's memory to store some information, like just like a jar or a box. Now, another thing that is very important to understand is when we store something in that variable, we can store things of different types. Now, those types can be number, and we have seen that already here, right? We are storing number 10, number 20, number 210 in these variables. But it can also be different data types, right? So it can be different data types. And those are, for example, Boolean. Boolean basically means true or false. Or yes or no, right? It just has two values. It can be either true or false, or it can be either yes or no. And we will see why that this is a very, very useful thing to store. It is really powerful. It can also be strings. Strings are things like your name. This is not really a number, is it? It is a set of characters, right? So string is a string of characters really that are combined together. And in general, in a lot of programming languages, strings are represented by these double quotations. If you have to just store a number, this is a number. But if you store the same number inside a double quote, that becomes a string which looks like 10. But you cannot do mathematical operators on this. So for example, if you do A equals 10 and B equals 20, if you do C equals A plus B, this will not work because A is of type number. B, although it looks like a number, is of type string. So the computer doesn't know how to do this operation of addition between a number and string. Okay, but strings are used for many other purposes other than these operations. So we will see that going forward, but that is a very important data type in any programming language.
Hello, sir. जर यामध्ये आन्सर भेटू शकेल का सर? पण जर तुम्ही जरी याला स्ट्रिंग मध्ये ठेवलं तरी सी मध्ये आन्सर येऊ शकेल का? जसं तुम्ही आधी ते आन्सर काय असू शकेल सर जर आपण प्रेडिक्ट केले तर? मला वाटतं 10 असू शकेल.
नाही, डिपेंड्स ऑन प्रोग्रामिंग लँग्वेज. पायथन मध्ये this will be an error.
Okay.
But what you can do is you can convert this into a number. So I will talk about that, how to do that later, but a number is represented as an integer, right? We know about that in maths. So what you can do is you can say A plus convert B into an integer and then do an addition with A. So what this will do is look at the string that is stored in B, which is 20, convert that into an integer. So that will convert it into a number 20 and then add it with 10. So in this case, you will get the result as expected, 30. Some programming languages might actually ignore this, but in most of them, this will first give you an error. It's good to get those errors because you will know that you are doing something unexpected. If a language just gives you number 10, if your program is very large, it will be very hard for you to know whether that number 10 is a correct answer that you expected or something incorrect, right? So all these programming languages try to give you error either at runtime or compile time, and we will talk about what that means. But some form of error that helps you find these issues in your program. You really don't want to do this, right? You really don't want to add a number with a string. You want to add a number with another number. So if you are not doing that, computer doesn't know what to do. You have to explicitly tell them. And one way to do that is this conversion, or another word for this conversion is typecasting, because we are changing from one type string to another type number. So hope that answers your question. Sorry, your voice is breaking.
Yes, sir, I got an answer.
Perfect, thanks. So these are what we call basic, right? So number, Boolean, and string are what we call basic data types. But there are more complex data types also, like lists, right? List is something where you can store multiple items. So let's say you want to store all the months in a year. So you will store something like this. And again, I'm using Python syntax here, but you can store something like this: January, February, and so on. So this is a list of items, and that is another kind of data type, which is distinct from this, right? And the list can be made up of basic data types. So you can have January, February, or you can even store them as numbers, 1, 2, up to 12, right? We know that January is number 1, February is number 2. So you can store either as a string or as a number. Both are lists. And there are a few more that that will become clear as we learn more. So I'll skip that for now. But the more important things to understand today is these basic data types. Okay. So we looked at expressions, variables. What's next? Operators. And we saw one operator already. We saw two actually, right? Plus and multiply. So in terms of operators, there are also different kinds of operators. And here I'm talking about operators that act on numbers, and as well as those Booleans that we saw earlier. And there are operators on string, but I will not go there yet. So what can you do with two numbers? Let's say 5 and 10. What are the operations that you can perform on these two numbers? Well, obviously there are the basic ones, right? Plus, minus, multiply, which in programming languages is represented by the star, and then divide. These are the basic ones that we all know and understand. There is also exponential. You can do 5 raised to power 10. So 5 raised to power 10. The way in Python to do that is 5 double star 10. Different languages have different ways to do this. For example, you might also see 5 and this caret sign, which represents the exponential. And then there is also this operator called modulus, which is generally represented by this percent sign. And this means remainder. So let's say you divide 10 by 3, right? So if you do that, your quotient is 9, correct? Sorry, 3, correct? So 3 times 3 is 9, but then there is a remainder. So you will do 3 times 3 is 9, and then there is a remainder 1. In programming, this is actually a very powerful method. You would want to know remainder for a lot of reasons. So there is a special operator to do that. So if you do 10% 3, it will give you 1, right? And that is the modulus operator, this one. These are the basic operators, basic arithmetic operators. Now, what else can you do with these two numbers? You can compare them, right? So if you have 5 and 10, you can compare them. You can see, hey, is 5 less than 10 or 5 greater than 10? Now, one of them will return true, one of them will return false, right? 5 is less than 10. So the result of this operator or this operation is true. Remember, we talked about Booleans, and this is where the Boolean come into play. Whenever you compare any two things, the result of that is a Boolean, either a true or in this case, a false, right? Unlike arithmetic operators where the result of this is another number, correct? 5 plus 10 is 15, which is another number. For comparison operators, when you compare two, the result will be not a number, but a Boolean, right? So that is very important to understand. And again, we will see why this is all important, but first we need to know the basic concept. So I'm going through a lot of them together, but we will use all of these in our programs and understand how they work. So those are comparison, and there are different kinds of comparison, right? Less than, greater than, less than or equal to, greater than or equal to. Another thing is equals, whether those two numbers are equal. And I'm writing it as 5 and 10, which really doesn't make sense. But when you think of variables, it makes a lot of sense. We want to compare whether variable A and variable B are the same or have the same value. Because we don't know, right? User can enter any value in these variables at runtime. It's very good to compare these and then do certain action. So all these comparison operators are very useful when you are looking at these variables. So equal to is one, and then another is not equal to, which is represented as an exclamation and then an equal sign. So this says, if both of them are 5 here, then the result of this will be false. Okay. If both of them are 5 here, the result will be true. So this is checks whether both of them are equal. This checks whether both of them are not equal. So that is the comparison operator. Then we have something called assignment operator. And we have seen that already. When we say A equals 10, we are assigning this value to this variable A. And that is why this is called an assignment operator. And you'll see here there are few other assignment operators like A star equals 10. What this means actually is A equals A multiplied by 10. This is just a shorthand assignment operator. If you are doing this many times, like A equals A times 10, it is kind of verbose. It takes some time and space for you to write. So there is a shorthand where you can just say A star equal to 10, which means exactly the same thing. You can write it in any of these ways. So it's not important to really know this necessarily, but it's good to have this in your vocabulary. I'll skip rest of the operators for now. We will get back to them when we look at the program again, because giving you just the list might get boring. So let's move on. So far, I'm looking at the chat for any questions. So if you have any questions, please add there. But so far, what we have seen, right, are basic statements. So simple statements. We have looked at assignment statements and expressions. Now let's look at one compound statement, right? We already saw one of them actually, which was block. And block has no special purpose or meaning. It is just few statements that are written together. It's called a block. The next compound statement that we are going to look at is if statement. If is very powerful, and we saw that in the last week's session when we did the greeting robot, right? The receptionist who was greeting people based on the time of the day. We saw how we did that, and we will revisit that in a moment. The idea of if statement is to do one action or the other based on certain condition. So the basic tenet is this: there will be a if, and there will be a condition. This condition should always evaluate to either true or false. So it has to have, excuse me, some operators that return true or false.
There's somebody asking a question.
So there is a question which says, what will be the result of A equals A times 10 if A has the value 2? So this is kind of, to evaluate this, what we can do is replace the value replace this variable with the value. So this will basically be evaluated like A times 10. A times 10 becomes 2 times 10. And the value of this is then stored back into A. So before this statement is run, so if you do something like print A, then do A equals A times 10, and then do print A again, the value of A at this point will be 2, but because we have evaluated this statement and print again, the value of this will be 20. Is that clear? That's a good question. You can use the same variable on both left and right side, right? That is important to understand here. Thanks, Saket. That was a good question. So going back to if. So going back to if, I was talking about how if is structured, right? In general, if is written this way. So there is a keyword called if, and there is some condition. And in Python, we write this keyword called then and a block of statements. So what happens is it will first evaluate this condition. So condition can be, let's say we have this variable A here. Condition can be something like A less than 30, which means if A is less than 30, then you run this block. Now, if can also have this additional keyword called else after this block. So you will have if, some condition, then, and then after this block, you can also write else. Which means if this condition is false, so if let's say A had the variable 40, sorry, A had the value 40, then this condition would be false, correct? A less than 30 will return me false. In that case, we don't want to execute this block, but instead we will execute this block. So that is kind of what if statement does. It helps us run different blocks of statements based on the condition that we provide. And there are three forms of this statement. The first one is just if condition then and a block. So if the condition is false, nothing will happen. It will just continue running anything else. In this case, if condition then and else, we have the if condition, a block, and an else, like what we saw here. But if you have many conditions, right? So let's say you want to have condition like if A is less than 30, do something. Otherwise, something like this. Let's say if A is between 0 and 30, you want to do something. If A is between 30 and 60, you want to do something. 60 and 90, you want to do something else. So the way to write this is, we know A is less than 30, then do something. And I'm not being very precise here. I will talk about, I'm ignoring the 0 for now, but don't worry about that. When we say else and write a condition, here, if we, let's say, write A less than 60, what this means is this condition was definitely false, right? So A is definitely not less than 30. That is why we came to the else block. which means A is greater than 60, A is somewhere here. And we also have this additional condition which says A less than 60, which means A has value something less than 60, which means we know for sure that A is between 30 and 60, correct? So we can do some other action based on that. So do something else here.
Similar to the good morning.
Right? We did something very similar when we did the receptionist, because remember we did if time is less than 12, then we did good morning, and then we only added one condition which said time is less than 5. But time is less than 5 condition is only executed when the first one was false, right? That's why we were sure that it is afternoon. We will revisit that and go back to that in a minute. So that's the basic if condition. Now, are there any questions on this? Do you want me to go through some more examples to explain this better? Okay, one more example, Sagar says. Sure. So let's take. So let's take an example where you want to find out whether a number is divisible or if it is even or odd. Okay, so you want to find a number whether it is even or odd. So let's say you have a variable A with that number for now. Let's say it has number 3. Now, to see whether this is even or odd, what you would need? You would need an if condition, because based on the condition, we want to do different things. So let's say you do if. Now we want to see how do we know whether this is divisible by 2 or not? Remember the operator we talked about called modulus, the percent operator that gives us a remainder after dividing by some number. So in this case, what we can do is if we divide or if we do the modulus of A with number 2, we will get some remainder. Now, just recall from your basic math, if you divide any number by 2, right, in this case, the remainder is 1. If you divide even number, let's say 100 by 2, in that case, the remainder will be 0, correct? Can there be any other remainder after you divide by 2? Can the remainder be 3 or 4? No, right? It can only be 0 or 1. So we can use that fact to say whether A is even or not. So if the remainder of the number divided by 2 is equal to, and remember, we have to do equal to twice, is equal to 1, then print, let's say, odd. And odd is a string, so you put it in double quotes. Else, now this is interesting because there are only 2 possibilities, 0 or 1. You don't have to explicitly add this condition, but I will add it here. If A%2 equal to 0, then print even. Right? So that is how a if statement is used. Actually, you have to add then here also. Yeah, else if. So because we are adding this condition, we have to add another if. So we write it else if A is divisible, A modulus 2 equal to 0, then it is even. If it is divisible, if the remainder is 1, then it is odd. Right? So this is another example of how you can use if statements. But always remember that whatever expression you write here should always return either true or false. Okay. Let's move on. We'll have to go to the fun parts real soon. Let's move on. So one important thing that I didn't talk about, and this is common for all languages, but there are different forms in which this can be done. But there is always some form of basic input and output that that is provided to you, right? Because a computer without an input and output is not very helpful. And we already saw one of the functions already, right? We saw print. So print function, if you put any string, will print that onto your screen. And in the same way, there is an input function. So if you say A equals input and say, please enter a number, what computer will do is it will print this string first and then wait for user to enter something using their keyboard and then store that value into this variable A. I'm just telling you this for now, but there are many other forms of input and output that you can use. But the most basic is this, right? Getting something using a keyboard and then printing something back to the screen. So these are the two that you should know for now. If time permits, in later sessions, we will see some examples of graphical user interface, right? For example, what you see here, you don't really have to type anything. You just have to click things to make things happen, right? That is another form of input that we can give. So we will look at other forms of input later on when we have time. But let's start with the basic one so that you get started on it. So we covered a lot of ground today. I'll go back to that slide. Okay, so we covered what expressions and statements are. We covered variables and we looked at some data types like numbers and strings. And we looked at some operators, especially arithmetic operators that perform some mathematical functions. And we looked at comparison operators that compare two numbers to give us true or false. And then we looked at conditionals, right? Which is nothing but a compound statement, which is if and else. So with that background, let's have some fun. Let's build something. And I will do one example. I'll show you, walk you through that whole example. But if you can do it on your own, please follow along, open Scratch, and I'll talk about Visual Studio Code when we go to that, so you can run that code also. But let's start with something fun. Let's revisit. Let's start with so I will share this slide with you after the session. There are some programs here that you can practice on your own. The first one is very similar to what we did last time. This is a greeting robot. Now the thing that we want to do here is get the name of the user, ask them to type their name, and then based on the time of the day, we want to greet them by their name. So for example, if I enter Alok and it's morning, I want to say good morning, Alok. Okay, so that's the program. And there is one bonus here, which is if that name is same as your name, then you additionally have this have a nice day at the end of your greeting. If the name is not same as your name, you can just say good morning and that name. Okay. Is that clear? We will do this to start with using pseudocode. And then we will do the same thing in Scratch. And then finally, we will do the same thing in Python. All good? So let's start with pseudocode. Let me walk you through this because I don't know how to ask you for it. It's very hard on this online format. So let me walk you through it. But for the next one, I will just give you some time to do it on your own. Okay. But for the first one, let's do it together. Now, what will we have to do to achieve this, right? First thing is we want to take input from the user. So we have seen how to do that. We know we can take input using this function. Input, enter your name. So pseudocode is just writing the whole program in plain English language. Remember? So we will just try to do that. So we will say input, enter your name. And we have to assign that to some variable, right? We have to store that name somewhere because we want to use it later. So let's store that in a variable called name. And earlier I used variable names like A, B, C, but in good programming practices, you should actually name your variables in some way that helps you know what is stored in that variable. Because we are storing a name in this variable, let's call that variable name. It should be a short descriptive name, okay? So in this case, the variable name is also name. Okay, that is one. Now, what else do we need? We want to greet the user based on the time of the day, correct? So we need to know what the time is. For now, don't worry about how to do that in a programming language. Just use plain English because this is just a pseudocode. So we say get time of the day. And then again, store that in some other variable. Can you guess the name? I think time is probably a good name for that. Okay, that's good. Now, what do you want to do? We want to greet them based on the time. So how will we do that? Well, we can use an if statement, right? So we will use if time. So we need some condition here, right? This is an expression which returns some condition, some Boolean value. And that condition here is time less than 12. Then we want to print. Now we want to print what? We want to print good morning. But we also want to print good morning and their name. So what we can do is print good morning, comma, and finish that quote. So whenever we put something in double quote, that string, just like this number, is called a constant. Right? This is a constant string. But at the same time, we want to print the name, which is a variable. So we cannot put that variable in here. This will be wrong. If we do this, good morning name, it will actually just print good morning name. It will not print name of the user. That's not what we want, right? So what we want is something like this. Good morning, finish that quote, and then do a plus name. Now, if both of these are strings, what most of the programming languages will do is just concatenate them, put them together. So that's how you print good morning and a name. So, okay, if it is not morning, then what? Then we want to print something else. So we do else. But again, there are good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. So how do we do afternoon? Afternoon is a time between 12 and 5, correct? So we need another condition here. So we do else if time is less than 5, is equal to
17.
24-hour clock, right? So we need to use 17 here, not 5. That is 5 p.m. That is 17. So we do, if time is less than 17, then you want to print, I will short it, right? Good afternoon. And then same thing, we put it in the quotes and then we do a plus and a name. And finally, anything after 5 p.m., we just want to print good evening, right? We don't want to say good evening, good night. That's okay. We just do, finally, we can just do an else. This else means if none of these conditions are true, it is not less than 12, it is not less than 17, which means it is greater than 17. We don't care what it is exactly, right? So we can just write else and then finally print good evening and then the name. Make sense? So we are using few things here, okay? We are actually using all the things that we learned. We learned how to take an input and an assignment operator. This is an assignment operator, correct? This is an assignment operator. This whole thing is an assignment statement, correct? And same thing holds here. Then we looked at expressions, right? Which is something that has a value. So this time less than 12 has a value, correct? So this is an expression. Now, what kind of expression is this? This expression is comparing two numbers, right? It is comparing time and comparing that with number 12. So using this operator, less than. So this is the operator which is comparing two numbers. So this is a comparison expression. Okay. And then we looked at this whole thing. This is actually one big statement. This is a compound statement called if, right? Obviously clear from the name. And finally, within this compound statement, actually, there are these blocks of statements. Here we are only using one statement, but you can do many things in this block. And this whole thing is a block, right? Because when this condition is true, we want to run all the statements that are in this block. We call that a block. Okay? So these are all the things that we learned and captured in this example. So this is how we do this in pseudocode. Now, let's do the same thing in Scratch. And the reason I'm doing this in Scratch is because of two reasons, right? One is you don't have to worry about the syntax, whether you are typing it correctly. And the other thing is when you see it visually, like a flow chart, the whole program becomes very, very clear. So that's why doing this intermediate step in Scratch can be useful. Now, if you are already familiar with some language, you can directly convert your pseudocode into that language. You don't have to use Scratch, but this is a fun way to start learning about this, writing this program visually or flowchart way, right? So I don't know if all of you have this installed. If you do, see if you can follow along. It will be fun to see the output that you have and compare that with mine. If not, actually, you can go to this website. I'll type that in the chat window. So go to that website and you can actually do this in your browser also. Okay, so let's start playing with this. So Scratch allows you to write these programs visually, like I said. And if you see the cat here, in this case, cat is like the computer for us. It will run the program that we draw here. There are many things you can do with Scratch, but basic understanding of that should be enough for now. So let's let's think of this cat as that receptionist, and we will make the cat greet us. Okay. So how can we do that? Let's follow along with our pseudocode and see if we can convert that into a program here. Do you need some time setting it up? Should I wait for some time? Let me know. Otherwise, I'll continue. All good? I assume everything is good because I don't see any message. So what we will do is try to convert this pseudocode into a Scratch program line by line. Okay. So the basic concept in the Scratch program is this controls that you see on the left. Okay. So these are like statements. Each one of them is like a statement. So first thing what we want to do is get input from the user. So let's look at the controls here. I think you'll find it in sensing. Yes. So sensing is like input. So you will get the statements that are related to input in the sensing tab. So click there and you have a statement that says ask what's your name and wait. So what we can do is pull this and drag it here. So that will, when you click here, you will see it asks for what's your name and waits for user to enter something, let's say ABC. Okay, but where did that go? What is the answer for that? So that's where this answer comes into play. But what we want to do is put that in some variable called name. So go to variables and click on make a variable and type name. So it will create that variable called name. Okay. So what we want to do is assign that answer, the answer of that input to this variable name. And that can be done by.
Hello, sir.
Yeah. Yes.
Sir, थोड़ा slow.
He is asking to slow.
Can you please type? So
It is slow.
okay.
वो बोल रहे हैं कि थोड़ा सा slow,
स्लो जाए. ठीक है.
थोड़ा fast हो रहा है.
हाँ.
I think browser or
ठीक. I'll go back so you can follow along, right? So we saw how to get input, right? So we brought this statement, ask what's your name and wait, and put it on the board. So that's how we get input from the user. Next thing we want to do is assign that to a variable. So what we did was clicked on variable and then click make a variable. So you will see the variable name appear here once you click that. Next thing we want to do is assign. Okay. So assign, as we saw, is an operator, right? Assignment operator. So we will go to operator and see if there is an assign operator. Yes. So there is this assign, right? Equal to, oh no, that's actually not the one. Oh, here. Sorry, it is in variable. So we want to assign in Scratch. It's a little bit different. To assign a variable, you have to use this set. So what you can do is drag and put it in this just below your ask statement, and then pick the variable that you want to set, which is name. And what do we want to set it to? We want to set it to the answer of your previous question, correct? So if you go back to sensing, under that you will see this answer block, correct? So just drag that and put this in this circle here. So what this will do is assign that answer to the variable name. Okay. So that's the first statement that we did. So this statement is now converted into this Scratch program. The next thing we want to do is get time of the day. Now, that is also sensing, right? So getting time of the day is also getting input. Now, this input is not from the user. This input is from the computer itself. So computer already knows what the time of the day is. So we can ask the computer to give us the time of the day. Now, to do that, we again go back to sensing and see if there is something related to time. Actually, there is. So there is an input which says current year. Okay. If you click on that, you will actually see different values here: year, month, date. What we want is current hour, right? So we click on that and it says current hour. Now we want to set this to another variable, right? Time. So what we can do is first go to variables and drag another of this set block or set statement and create another variable called time. So we have another variable time. So you can select that variable here. But we want to set this to time of the day, right? So we go back to sensing and we drag this time of the day into this block. So this will give us the current hour from 0 to 24, 0 to 23. And whatever, depending on the time you have on your computer, it will set that time here. And again, okay, so this is the second statement. Now we want this compound statement, if compound statement, correct? I will wait a second to make sure you guys follow through.
Sir, I didn't get the current time wala sensing.
Okay. So let's say you have to greet someone, right? What? Okay, sorry. Do you mean?
No. In the Scratch, sir. In the Scratch. Yeah. Where is it? I didn't do.
Okay. So if you click the sensing tab, the light blue color, go all the way down. So it's the second last. It says current hour. So what this will do, right, is ask your computer, get the input from the computer itself on what the current year, date, month, or whatever you want. In this case, we want an hour. So you can select hour. But we want to assign that to some time, right? Some variable called time. So we block, we get the set statement first, and then we go and then get the current hour and put it in the statement. Got it?
सर नहीं समझ में आया, एक बार सर फिर से
हिंदी में बताता हूँ मैं, ठीक है?
ओके सर.
तो let me start from the beginning. Let me remove this. तो ये स्टेटमेंट क्या कहता है? टाइम इक्वल्स गेट टाइम ऑफ द डे, है ना? तो फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल हमें क्या करना है? टाइम ऑफ द डे जो है वो कंप्यूटर से पूछना है, क्योंकि कंप्यूटर के पास ऑलरेडी ये टाइम ऑफ द डे पता है, उसे पता है, करेक्ट? तो स्क्रैच में एक स्टेटमेंट है और एक एक्सप्रेशन है जो ऑलरेडी ये हमें प्रोवाइड करेगा, विच इज कॉल्ड करंट ईयर और करंट टाइम. सो करंट आवर मतलब आवर इज 1, 2, 3, राइट? आवर्स ऑफ द डे. तो ये जो एक्सप्रेशन है ये हमें करंट टाइम ऑफ द डे देगा, ठीक है? तो वो है सेंसिंग के अंदर. अब आप जाओगे तो उसमें आप अगर नीचे आओगे तो आपको दिखेगा ये करंट और टाइम ऑफ द डे, करंट आवर ऑफ द डे एक्चुअली, ठीक है? बट अगर इसे यूज करना है हमें तो इसे किसी वेरिएबल को पहले हमें असाइन करना पड़ेगा, राइट? तो हमने पहले ऑलरेडी देखा कि एक वेरिएबल कैसे क्रिएट करना है। तो हम गए वेरिएबल पे और फिर क्लिक किया मेक अ वेरिएबल। उसके बाद हमने उसको नेम किया टाइम। तो ये वेरिएबल आ गया हमारे पास। अब हमें इस वेरिएबल को एक वैल्यू असाइन करनी है। तो हम क्या करेंगे, ये सेट जो स्टेटमेंट है उसको हमने स्क्रैच में ऐड किया। ठीक है, तो इसके बाद कौन सा वेरिएबल हमें असाइन करना है उसे सिलेक्ट करना पड़ेगा, वो है टाइम। लेकिन बाय डिफॉल्ट ये क्या बोल रहा है, सेट टाइम टू 0। हमें 0 असाइन करना है क्या? नहीं, हमें असाइन करना है करंट टाइम ऑफ द डे, करंट आवर ऑफ द डे। तो उसके लिए हम गए सेंसिंग के अंदर वापस, और ये जो करंट आवर है इसको ड्रैग किया और इंस्टेड ऑफ ये 0 हमने वहां पे इसको छोड़ दिया। तो इससे क्या होगा, जो करंट आवर ऑफ द डे है वो कंप्यूटर डिटेक्ट करेगा और उसकी वैल्यू इस वेरिएबल नेम टाइम में वो ऐड करेगा और इसको सेट करेगा। आया समझ में? एग्जैक्टली जो हम यहाँ पे कर रहे हैं, टाइम इक्वल्स गेट टाइम ऑफ द डे। सेम थिंग यहाँ पे देखो, सेट टाइम टू करंट टाइम ऑफ द डे। मैंने करंट आवर, राइट, इट्स द सेम थिंग। आया ध्यान में? ठीक है, तो मूविंग ऑन।
यस सर।
मूविंग ऑन, ठीक है। अभी नेक्स्ट थिंग हमें क्या करना है, हमें ये इफ स्टेटमेंट लिखना है ना। इफ इज अ कंट्रोल स्टेटमेंट, क्योंकि हम कंट्रोल क्या कंट्रोल कर रहे हैं, कौन सा ब्लॉक रन होना चाहिए उसे कंट्रोल कर रहे हैं, राइट। तो इफ इज ऑल्सो कॉल्ड अ कंट्रोल स्टेटमेंट। तो आप जाओगे कंट्रोल में और यहाँ पे देखो, यहाँ पे कोई इफ स्टेटमेंट है क्या? हाँ है। एक्चुअली दो टाइप के इफ है, इफ और इफ एल्स। हमें यहाँ पे कौन सा सिलेक्ट करना पड़ेगा, क्योंकि यहाँ पे हमें दो कंडीशंस ट्राई करनी है, राइट। तो लेट्स डू इफ एल्स इंस्टेड ऑफ जस्ट इफ। तो हमने क्या किया, इफ को यहाँ पे ड्रैग किया, ठीक है। नाउ इफ के अंदर सबसे पहले हमें क्या देना पड़ेगा, एक एक्सप्रेशन, एक कंडीशन, करेक्ट। तो कंडीशन इज कंडीशनल एक्सप्रेशन, जिसके लिए हमें एक ऑपरेटर चाहिए होगा, ठीक है। तो हम क्या करेंगे, ऑपरेटर के अंदर जाएंगे और कौन सा कंडीशन है, लेस देन, ठीक है। तो हमने देखा यहाँ पे ऑपरेटर, लेस देन ऑपरेटर, उसको ड्रैग करके हमने यहाँ छोड़ दिया, ठीक है। नाउ एक थिंग आप नोटिस कर रहे होंगे कि ये जो स्टेटमेंट्स है, ये एक्चुअली देयर आर डिफरेंट शेप्स फॉर ईच ऑफ दिस स्टेटमेंट, करेक्ट। नाउ this statement has this kind of diamond kind of shape, है ना। जो करंट हमने देखा था उसका कैसा, ये सर्कुलर रेक्टेंगल टाइप का शेप है। तो ये शेप ऑल्सो हेल्प्स यू आइडेंटिफाई कौन सा कहा जाना चाहिए। फॉर एग्जाम्पल यहाँ पे ये ऑपरेटर नहीं जाएगा क्योंकि इसका शेप डिफरेंट है, एंड दैट इज बिकॉज दिस इज अ अरिथमेटिक ऑपरेटर, है ना। 10 plus is an arithmetic operator, it can add two numbers. But for an if statement, what we need is a condition. We need something that returns true or false. But ये जो operator है, ये true or false return करता है क्या? नहीं. So we cannot put that operator in if. ये हमें add यहाँ रखने ही नहीं देगा. Instead, search for these conical or diamond shaped operators. ये ऑपरेटर क्या है, कंपैरिजन ऑपरेटर्स है। इसका मतलब वो ट्रू या फॉल्स रिटर्न करेंगे। तो हम क्या कर सकते हैं, ये ऑपरेटर को इस डायमंड शेप के अंदर ऐड कर सकते हैं, लेकिन ये ऑपरेटर को नहीं कर सकते क्योंकि इसका शेप डिफरेंट है और ये ट्रू और फॉल्स रिटर्न नहीं करेगा। आया समझ में? ठीक है, अभी हमने ये ऑपरेटर तो डाल दिया। अब ऑपरेटर में हमें लेफ्ट साइड में क्या चाहिए, टाइम, विच इज अ वेरिएबल। सो हम गए वेरिएबल में और ड्रैग किया टाइम। अगर टाइम लेस देन 12 तो हमने यहाँ पे एंटर किया नंबर 12, करेक्ट। तो ये हमने एज इज ये कंडीशन यहाँ पे लिख दी। इफ टाइम इज लेस देन 12 देन जो कुछ भी हम ये देन वाले ब्लॉक, इफ वाले ब्लॉक में डालेंगे वो रन होगा। तो अभी हमें यहाँ पे क्या करना है, हमें प्रिंट करना है कुछ, है ना। तो लेट्स से प्रिंट कहाँ पे होगा? एक्चुअली प्रिंट होगा इस केस में लुक्स के अंदर, बिकॉज ये वन काइंड ऑफ आउटपुट है। तो आप गए लुक में और यहां बोलेंगे हम से इज सेम एज प्रिंट, राइट? क्योंकि ये कैट है तो ये कैट बोलेगी। सो से व्हाट? गुड मॉर्निंग। फॉर नाउ let me just do this. Let's just do good morning without the name. मैं आपको बताऊंगा नाम कैसे करना है थोड़ी देर बाद, ठीक है? ये हो गया फर्स्ट कंडीशन। इफ टाइम इज लेस देन 12 देन से गुड मॉर्निंग। अब उसके बाद क्या है हमारा यहाँ पे? एल्स के अंदर एक्चुअली देयर इज वन मोर इफ, करेक्ट? इफ टाइम इज लेस देन 17, तो हमें क्या करना पड़ेगा? सोचो, हमें एक और इफ यहाँ पे डालना पड़ेगा, है ना? तो हमने एक और इफ उठा के ये इसके अंदर डाल दिया, क्योंकि हमें एक और कंडीशन यहाँ पे ऐड करनी है। सेम प्रोसेस हम फॉलो करेंगे। गए ऑपरेटर्स के अंदर और इसको ड्रैग किया, उसके बाद गए वेरिएबल्स के अंदर और इसको ड्रैग किया। अब वेरिएबल ये क्या होना चाहिए? इन दिस केस 17, है ना? अगर 17 से कम है तो हम क्या बोलेंगे? से, फिर से ये से वाला स्टेटमेंट ऐड किया, से गुड आफ्टरनून। अदरवाइज इज देयर एनी मोर कंडीशन हियर? नो, राइट? देयर इज नथिंग हियर, सो वी कैन जस्ट पुट another say block or say statement which says good evening, correct? So we have converted this pseudocode into this Scratch program, correct? ठीक है? Now let's to run this, you can just click on this and it will run. So if you see here, the cat is asking, let's stop. If you click, the program will run. So what it will do is, first it will say, what is your name? So the cat is asking, what is your name? You can type your name here. Then it will run this block, right? After that. Now for me, the time is 9 in the morning. So it says, let's click again. It says, good morning. Now, if you have completed this program, you can also try to run this and see what you see. Hopefully you see good evening. Let me know if any of you see that output. Is anyone running this? Do you want me to wait for some time while you finish, or should I move on? Just click on this for now. If you click on it, it will run. Just click on the program.
But you can do it when the flag is.
Yeah.
That is
Pradnya, did that work? Okay, there is another way. So if you go to events, there is this thing event called when a flag is clicked. The first one, drag this and put it on the top. What this means is run this program when this flag is clicked. So next time when I click this, it will run. So try that for yourself. Go to events and then check this when flag clicked statement and drag it to the top of the program. And then when you click this flag, it will run. To stop, you can click stop. Yeah, it worked. Okay, good. So what is the output do you see? Nice, right? So it is looking at the time of your computer and then it greets you. Now, there is one thing that was missing, right? It's not using our name anywhere. Let's fix that. So to do that, here we just said good morning and plus the name. But in Scratch, there is a slightly different way to do that. So if you go to operators, there is this operator, go down, and there is this operator called join. You see that? You can drag this and put it here. What it will do is join these two strings. So first string should be good morning, comma, and then if you go back to variables, you can drag the name variable into the second block. So what this will do is join good morning and the name. And you can do that for all the blocks here, okay? So you go join. I will do one more join. This is good afternoon and good evening.
Looks like some second.
Hey, Saket, you also got it. Nice. And then let's drag the name once, twice. So make sure you stop and run. So I'm typing my name and it says good morning, hello. Right? So that is because we did this join of two strings, good morning, and then the variable name. Let's see if you can do that and see the result. Now, if for everyone, if you don't have this setup, don't worry. But I really encourage you to do this setup after the session and try to run some of these. Again, you may not use this in your real programming, but we want to focus not just on programming, but also developing this logic. So to do that, Scratch is very, very good. It is really, really powerful to understand and build this logic in a very simple, very visual manner, because a lot of the people, they are visual learners. So when they look at this, it's very clear to them. And maybe you are one of them. So try it out and see if it really helps. If not, you can obviously go from pseudocode directly to your program, and we will do that in a minute. So don't worry.